Hey, good evening, everybody. Pull up my comments over here so I can see that you see me, that you hear me. Uh, Welcome to episode 3 of Angler Spotlight. Doing something a little bit different tonight, sort of, because he is an angler. But tonight I'll be bringing on the 2024 title sponsor for CCKF, FourSeven Lures. Some of the people had found it quite a mystery because they didn't know who FourSeven Lures was, who was behind it, and um, it's funny. He doesn't have any other social media other than FourSeven Lures, so there's nothing out there with his name on it. But we'll talk to him tonight. Did want to show the hats are in. I posted on the Facebook page. This week a picture of the hats, or this past weekend when I picked them up. So here's this is the heather gray with the leather patch is nice and visible. So I'm pretty happy with them. I mean, they're Richardson hats again, so it's always um, you know what you get when you get a Richardson 112 hat. So um, glad to have them in hand, as I have confirmed with the jersey vendor that I should have the jerseys in hand prior to heading up to Hyco Lake. So at Hyco, if you ordered a jersey and you're at Hyco, I'll get it to you then. And if you're not at Hyco, then we'll see about getting it to you as quickly as possible. Um, Hated to have to um, postpone or cancel or whatever we want to call the Harris tournament. Um, as is always a risk. We called it based on the weather forecast, and then the weather didn't turn out half as bad as what they had predicted. I think it was varied based on your location, though. So I never got on my side of Sanford. I never got a great amount of rain or anything. On the other side of Sanford, they got poured on. That side of Sanford's a little closer to Harris. And then on Sunday, they were calling for 20, 25-mile-an-hour winds. Um, and I did, there were some gusts, but here it never got really windy. But I did see a few people that had gone out fishing and posted that they did have to fight a good amount of wind that day. But it's always a tough call to decide not to have a tournament based on the weather. We work these schedules out months in advance. We work with CKA, we work with Foothills Kayak. We've got Queen City's schedule in front of us. There's a lot of thought and effort that goes into scheduling a tournament, and so it's not so much that you don't want to have to go through the hassle of rescheduling it. It's finding a suitable time to reschedule it. We couldn't push it out a week because this weekend CKA has Burlington Bash. So we couldn't step on that. So as you saw on the Facebook page, we scheduled a new event for May 18th on the Cape Fear River. I know some people are not excited about not fishing Harris and fishing the river instead. However, the title sponsor is Cape Fear River Adventures, so it just makes the most sense that we host the Cape Fear River Adventures event on Cape Fear River. They had actually asked to that in the very beginning, but the schedule had already been made out, and Um, I didn't want to change an event right after we had published a schedule, so this just presented an opportunity to move it over to the river, and we'll see how it goes. Last year we fished the river in the heat of the summer. This year we'll be fishing it in May, so it'll be much different. So, with that said, this year I was kind of struggling with finding a title sponsor. We had locked the title sponsor down, and then some things changed, and they weren't able to do it. Um, I was targeting a particular business for title sponsor when just kind of out of the blue, this opportunity came up, and I was contacted by FourSeven Lures, wanting to know if we wanted to sponsor. levels of sponsorship were available. Um, and I was like, well, we've got this lower level and we've got this lower level, and then it came up with title sponsors actually available, and he just jumped all over it. He was like, "How much is it?" And he went back and made a decision, and he jumped all over it. And so we have 4-7 Lures as title sponsor this year. And with that, I'm going to bring him on. Hey man,
Hey,
how's it
nice to
going?
see you guys, man. Yeah, no, you know, um, I just want to say that I fished a couple events, in prior years, and so I kind of knew about you guys and everything, and the opportunity presented itself, and of course you said that I was a mystery, which is complete. It's a mystery to me, I was like, oh man, people want to know who I am, so kind of jumped on the opportunity to come on and talk and have a good time and everything. So
Yeah, yeah. So it's for people that don't realize yet, he's actually signed up in the Angler of the Year race, and we've talked a couple times. We met in person.
had a good
Down
beer.
in, yeah, yeah, and we had a good conversation that night, and we've chatted a couple times online. Just chatting back and forth, typing, and then last night we spent. I think we decided we were going to test StreamYard, and ended up just having a talk on
Yep,
StreamYard a lot longer
yep,
than we planned. And
yep.
it wasn't all about fishing, right? It was about lots of different things.
No,
So
that's the cool thing is, it's like you can just have a conversation with people. I feel like nowadays everyone, they have like a screen in front of their face all the time and they
yeah,
just don't know how to talk to people, just have a conversation, So
hundred
yeah,
percent, 100%. And so anyway, I'm going to start off with just a couple questions for you,
sure.
just to kind of get you introduced. And I gotta show this. Hank
Nice
says,
jacket.
"Nice jacket."
I
So
hope you're talking to me because I mean I don't see a jacket on Mitch.
yeah, we uh, last year I made a post because I had gone to Belk with my wife, and I found this one jacket that I really really like. Like, I don't know why, I'm just kind of obsessed with like sport coats and jackets, and
Because they're
but I
comfortable.
never wear them anywhere. They never come out of my closet. But I found one down there that was like a gold, looked like a tux jacket, but it was a gold lame kind of
Man,
material. I guess you call it lame. And I posted a picture of it saying I was going to judge. This was going to be my new judging uniform.
you have to
So
get
that
a
ties right in.
bejeweled cane with that outfit, like a big
Right.
ruby or
Right.
something on top of it.
I've had some Halloween costumes that resembled what you're describing. So so anyway, where so the question I've asked everyone so far, where were you born and raised?
Born in Virginia Beach. My father was actually military, moved around a whole bunch, and then right before high school, kind of settled in North Carolina, and I've been here ever since. So high school, college. Um, when I graduated high school, I went and lived in New York for a little while because I thought I wanted to do that, and I just quickly realized how terrible it is up there, and just came back. I've been there ever since. So
Yeah, New York's nice to visit if you're talking about the city. Um,
yeah, I don't know. Every time I've ever visited New York, it smells like a bathroom, and there's just tons of people, and there's buildings everywhere, and there's no trees, there's no green. I mean, it's just kind of
right.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
the,
So
the
we went.
furthest you could ever be from nature.
So we are Red Sox fans.
There you go.
My son and I, and actually, coincidentally, my father-in-law, um, Big Poppy Ortiz's last season. We were not able to head up to Boston, but we did get tickets to see Boston play the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. And
Nice.
so we go up and we spent Hank. I guess this is you're doing that because I'm a Red Sox fan. Um, Story behind that: how are you a Red Sox fan from North Carolina? Why are you not a Braves fan or um, Boston? Fenway was the first major league park I ever went to. Went with my dad. Sat on the third base line, lower level. I don't know how old I was. I was not so interested in the game. I was interested in being in the gift shop, and it was the '80s. So I got the Red Sox terry cloth sweatbands,
There you
and
go.
and things like that. So
Some of those old jerseys, man, they sell for high dollar these days.
yeah, I don't know who this is. I'm a sock, but at least somebody's a Sox guy too. So anyway, we go up. I took my son and my niece, and we go up to see. We spent. I can't remember what day the game was on. Maybe it was a Sunday game. So we spent Saturday exploring the city, walking around. Sunday we go see the Trade Center Memorial,
Mhm.
and I was always told like don't wear any Boston gear. Like people are going to treat you terrible if you um, uh, uh, wear your Boston gear and all that. So the day of the game, we're at Trade Center. I'm wearing just a Ortiz T-shirt, not a jersey, but a T-shirt, and nobody was rude or anything until I asked a police officer for directions. And he looks at me and he looks at my shirt and he looks back at me and he's like, "That's not happening." And
Really? He didn't give you
yeah,
directions? He's a
yeah, he would
police
not give
officer.
me
Is he supposed to
directions.
help?
I'm in a Boston shirt. He would not give me directions.
Isn't he
So
supposed
that
to
was
help the people? I mean, what?
yeah, yeah. So it's anyway, yeah. So we go up, explore the city, and we had a good time. We actually stayed just over the river. We stayed in Jersey,
Mhm.
right, just over the river. We could see the city. We
What's
took
that?
a free shuttle from the
Weehawken? What's that?
hotel.
Weehawken? Where is right over the river? What's that city that's
Geez, I can't think, but it was. Turns out we found out we were just a couple blocks away from the original like Carlos Bakery, like
yeah.
the one where they actually filmed a lot of the Cake Boss stuff. So
Yeah.
the last morning there, we go over and get a bunch of cannolis and just get all kinds of stuff to put in the car for the drive home. So
You'll never
uh,
have a cannoli made better than getting it straight from New York or New Jersey.
oh, and I'm a huge fan of New York style pizza.
Oh,
Um,
who is it, man?
yeah, Hank, I think Hoboken was
Hoboken.
where we
Yeah.
were.
There's Hoboken
And
and then there's Weehawken right beneath it. I spent a lot of time
uh,
in both many, many years ago. But,
Well, everybody's doing some kind of kin, it sounds like then.
yeah.
Uh, but we come out of the hotel, we were on we could see the tunnel from the parking lot of the
Yeah.
hotel. So we just jumped on the bus and they took us right over to Grand Central Station,
Yep.
dropped us off. We never got on anything at Grand Central Station. We just walked from there to wherever. But the day of the game, we walked from Trade Center Memorial all the way up, all the way through from one end of Central Park to the other, and we walked all the way up to Yankee Stadium.
Man.
And man, we were so tired. So, but anyway,
It's a lot
so
easier of a walk than down here. A city
yeah,
mile, New
yeah,
York mile is totally different than a country mile.
that's right. Yeah, at least there was stuff along the way. Like this. I also did learn not to take if somebody holds out a CD to you in Times Square or any of that area. Don't take it because it's not free. And me with my Southern raising, right? I just thought everybody was being friendly. And I take one of those. I took one of those free CDs, and the guy's like, "Well, no, 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 no! I need my money." I'm like, well, "Your money for what?" I'm like, "No, you can just have the CD back." Like I made an enemy, but I wasn't giving him any money. I don't even know what kind of music it was. So
I'm surprised he
anyway,
accepted it. Normally they
so
feel like get in your face or something.
yeah, right, right. You learn how to ignore people real quick up there, though, right?
Oh,
Like you just keep walking when
that's
somebody's
one of those things, man.
yeah. So what's your earliest fishing memory?
Earliest fishing memory, probably with my father. I mean, when I was like a super little child, I remember having one of those little tiny, I guess, baby rods, and I remember him threading on a little bobber, and putting a worm on it and just like throwing it out. And this would have been like in Virginia,
Yeah,
and I was born in Virginia Beach, like on the military base there. So, I mean, there's fishing everywhere. You just walk outside your apartment or your condo or whatever, and so yeah, I think it would have been just, him helping me put the bobber on and, a little worm or whatever, a little tiny. I can't actually remember catching anything, but I remember going out there and having a good time and, and that just kind of sticking with me. So
I do. I wish I could find I mean, I could, but I'm not going to. But I just thought about it. I had not talked about this before. This was a memory that I have now. I mean, it wasn't my first fishing memory. Uh, Pocket Fisherman in the 80s. They came out with the Pocket Fisherman. They would have the commercials on TV.
Hmm.
All of 2 feet long. It folded in half.
Yeah.
The reel was inside the plastic housing of
Yeah.
the. And I remember being at Myrtle Beach in either Lakewood or Pirate Land campground, and they would always have impoundments inside those campgrounds. And I remember standing on the side of that and throwing with that pocket fisherman trying to catch fish out of that out
You
of
catch
that. And
anything?
probably may not have been a fish in the whole thing. It might have been a drainage ditch, but I was fishing it, man. So so you are a kayak fisherman. We'll talk a little
Mhm.
bit about your kayak in a minute, but how'd you get into kayak fishing?
Man, I was so I took a big, I fished as a child, then I took a big long break, like, like 15 years, because, life happens in high school and college and all that other stuff, and career. And then I got back to it. I was in the middle of for a while, I was cycling through hobbies, just trying to figure out what it was that I enjoyed. And I was like, well, let me get back to fishing. Let me like give that an opportunity. And I just fell in love with it all over again. And then I started, kind of like watching YouTube videos. Hey man, like there's all these kayak fishers and everything, and I just like the idea because a bass boat, it's a totally different experience. The bass boat, you need like a trailer. You need a boat ramp. And there's all sorts of stuff you need in order to go on. A bass boat and just even go out. And with a kayak, you don't need any of that. I mean, I just need to be able to access the riverside or whatever it is. I can put my kayak in. So I don't know. It gets you a lot closer to the water, and I feel like when you're catching fish and everything, it's just a lot more like engaging, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so I went out and ended up buying a kayak, and I've been upgrading it ever since, as every kayak fisherman does, and it's just been a good time.
Dude, and so you're actually, you made me. I've been thinking about this this week, past 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, a lot. I've been thinking about this. So um, when I first started kayak fishing, and Hank, you're going to relate to this. I know Hank will have a lot of comments to make about this because he still does this um, the way I perceive it. But my first my first kayak was an Ascend 10-foot sit inside, but it was called a fishing kayak.
Mhm.
It sucked because the hull was just round on the bottom, right?
Mhm.
There were no channels, there were no
No,
it was just
no,
round on the bottom.
no
No
stability.
stability built in
Uh,
whatsoever.
you got to reach
Um,
over and net a fish, and it's like you're about to roll
yeah,
out of the
you felt
kayak.
like you were going over. You felt like you were
Yeah.
going over. So then from there, I upgraded to the FS12 sit on top Ascend.
Mhm.
Um, and that was not a heavy kayak, but it's not light, right? Like it
Mhm.
wasn't like the little one. But so then I get into a Wilderness Commander. So it's that hybrid style, looks like a canoe, but it's the one of the most stable kayaks I've ever owned because your feet are actually below the water level when you're
Mhm.
standing up. So that gives
Mhm.
you a lot of center of gravity. But the point I'm trying to make is my son and I would go Rocky River in Chatham County. There used to
Mhm.
be a dam,
Mhm.
and then below the dam, when you come down, there's an old steel bridge, and we would go park on the side of the road and drag our kayaks down. And I don't mean you were right on the bank, right? You had to drag
Yeah.
your kayak a couple hundred yards,
Mhm.
but we would drag and we would get in this water that was no deeper. We could barely float it in some spots. We had about a mile and a half stretch of river that we could fish before it was too rocky. Um, but we would go places that had no ramps, right?
Mhm.
That really had no access, and we would drag across it. I can't do that anymore. So, with my latest boat, especially,
You're
um,
not dragging that 100 yards
yeah,
anywhere.
I don't know that I can ever fish any place that does not have a ramp again now.
Yeah.
And I might have to trailer launch. I definitely can't. I definitely at my age now, I can't pull this thing up the ramp to get it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have. So I've been like reworking my trailer so I can land it, on the trailer. Um, but it's I missed that. Hank. Well, the reason I said this would resonate with Hank was, even most of the places we go, if it's a river fed place, that's where Hank's headed, right? he's headed for the river, the stream, the current. Um, and if he's got a chance to launch up in that, instead of having to paddle or pedal
Hmm.
or however he's going to get there, he does that. But I've just been reminiscing about that this week. I mean, we got into kayak fishing because we wanted to get to those places that you couldn't get to with a boat. And then we upgrade not only the kayak itself, but we upgrade kayaks,
Hmm.
to the point where now all of a sudden we've kind of lost touch with what it was that got us into kayak fishing to start with.
I have a
So
solution. I have a solution for that. So I'm actually one of my favorite places to fish is actually an abandoned business park in Cary, and I'm not going to mention the name of it because then everyone will go blow it up. But
everybody will want to go
yeah,
fishing.
everyone will go blow it up, and I'll never catch a fish there again. But so it's abandoned business park. They stocked the pond. This was about 10 years ago. The whole business park is completely abandoned, and no one's fished it ever since. And it's right,
Wow.
actually, it's out by RDU, kind of the Cary side of that. It's in the flight path at least, and so my solution is I'm just going to buy an inflatable kayak. So
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
found an inflatable one that's like 33 pounds, and I was like, and it has an automated pump, so I can just hook it up and it inflates in like 3 minutes, and bam, I'm out on the water. I don't have
yeah.
to drag this. My current yak is a native Titan 10.5 pedal. And man, with all the stuff I've put on, it's like 300 pounds, man. I mean, I got a motor on it. I got dual graphs. It's like, yeah, I'm not dragging that thing anywhere. You're right.
Yeah.
You need a boat
Yeah.
ramp.
So I was going to ask you about that because, I didn't, even when we started this, I knew you had a Titan, right?
Yep. Yep.
And that's not a light boat, right? But it's the 10.5, I think is a lot more portable than when you got they had a Titan 13.
13. Yeah.
They got rid of the 13, and then I guess they had the 12 or 12.5. Now
Yep.
you got the Titan X, which might be the heaviest kayak ever produced in its stock form.
Yeah.
Um, somebody said we know that place. Just saying, and somebody else
It's not
asked
off Weston. It's
asked
not
a
off
question,
Weston
but we're not
Parkway.
going to confirm or deny, where this
Well,
is.
I'll confirm. It's not off Weston Parkway. Wrong place, guys.
Yeah, here's somebody that evidently has still got the Titan 13.5.
13.5. That's such a
I guess that's a
gigantic
Titan, or is it a
boat.
Titian? I don't know if that's a Titian 13.5 by some other company. Like it's the Temu version of a native. I don't know.
I mean, my question is it as stable, and did he get it cheaper? Because if it's the Timo version and it's more
Right,
stable
right.
and cheaper, man,
I
jump on
I will
it.
say this: my new rig is the most stable
Yeah.
kayak I've ever stepped foot on.
Well,
I
those
was
Titan X's are like 8 inches wider on the inside. Like my 10.5
yeah
is I think it's 34 on the inside, and the Titan X's are like 41. I mean, that's incredible. It's
yeah
the size of a
it's
new canoe.
but it's 170. I think I wanted to say the rig, without before you add your graph, just
Yeah.
with the seat and the pedals and all that in there. I think it's 176 pounds. If
Mine's
I'm not
100,
mistaken.
120 bare for the 10.5 with the pedal drive and all that. And then, of course,
Yeah.
I went crazy and I wired, it's like I put a motor on it. So now I got to have nav lights. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
if I'm going to wire nav lights, I might as well put some LEDs in the back so I can see where I'm going. And then I wired some 300-watt floodlights up front because I was like, if I'm going to be launching in the dark, I want to see what I'm casting at, right? So I have floodlights, I have LEDs, I did all the wiring myself. It's man, it's an addiction, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, here we go. Mitch will now be doing goat yoga on his Titan X. Yeah, definitely shield your eyes because if I'm doing goat yoga, I've probably got plumber's crack as well.
I can just see you standing on your head, like out there, in the middle of Harris or something, standing on your hands.
So you've got dual graphs.
Yep.
So with you're running, are you running forward facing sonar? Or are you running something like Humminbird 360 or what's?
Yep, I've got forward facing, and then just one screen, a 10-inch screen dedicated to that, and then I have a down scan, side scan up on my other screen. Maybe I'll pull up like a map or something, normal stuff.
Yeah,
I think I actually sent you a picture of it, but
yeah, you did. You've got both your graphs on the left side.
Yep.
Going down that rail, right? So you've got them staggered
Yep.
in a way that you can see them both very easily.
I actually use two like yak mounts, and one is just a taller yak mount than the other one. So they're not really like I don't know, like it's not like one unit or anything that holds both the graphs. It's just two
Right,
little
right.
yak
Like
mounts.
two separate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you've got, on the Titan X's, you see the guys that have like the console thing, so their graphs are mounted right in front of them,
Yep.
side by side.
I got a
And
question about that though. I mean, with it being 13.5 feet long, you got to figure from the hatch. I mean, what are you, maybe like 4 feet away? I mean, those even on a 10-inch screen, like that
well,
side
the
scan,
X,
down scan.
so the X is not there. There was the Titan 13.5. The X is called a 12.5.
Oh, okay.
The actual dimensions are 12'8", but I was in a Slayer Max,
Mm,
had my graph mounted on the right on the rail in the Slayer
mm-hmm,
Max. The
mm,
Titan X has two short pieces of track between the hatch and the footwell, right? So I've moved
yeah,
my graph onto that short piece of track. It's now more directly in front of me than over to my right. Gives me, before I didn't even want to enter or exit the kayak on that right side because my
right.
feet would get caught on the graph, or what. Gives me a lot more freedom to get in and out on either side. But the graph is farther away from me now, right? It's in front of my pedals, like when I'm pedaling.
Yeah,
It's down
isn't
there.
it?
I can
It,
see it,
it
but
seems like it'd be harder to see, because it's like you think about like side scan or something, and unless you're going over like a big creek channel or something, or a
right,
big
right, right. Yeah.
log or something. I mean, you'd
Yeah,
be like,
I'm not gonna see
squinting.
the little dots that the fish
Yeah,
are that on
yeah,
side scan at that distance, not at my age.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but that's, yeah, somebody's all these electronics got baby bass, but I mean, that's really what they're turning into, right?
It's
The
funny.
Titan X.
I was thinking of adding a third screen and getting another live scope in perspective mode.
Yeah, yeah.
So, maybe we'll have that to look forward to. Big, like, 3, 4 screen setup. I'll
I
put
did like
360 on there
there's
too.
I think I talked about it before, but Chris Dalzane is before I can't remember which of the two Bass Elite events it was, but before one of them, he went to a bunch of different anglers, and
Hmm.
the one angler had $50,000 just in electronics.
Hmm.
He had 4 screens on the console and 3 screens on the front.
And they
He
were like
had
22-inch screens. They were big.
yeah, yeah. So he had, he had forward facing, also as rear facing and side facing. Right, he had sonar going out in every direction from the boat, and so when he's cruising, right, when he's mapping or whatever, he's almost looking at forward facing like it's side scan,
Sure.
and behind him, and he could just see everything. And
As
then
he's running so much sonar that as he's cruising, fish are just blowing up in the water next
I
to him.
think so. Yeah, it's almost like it's like electroshock, from uh, and so somebody has said, that is why you get the big screens with the Apple Vision.
I
Um,
saw that, and the sunglasses where they can put the live scope into your glasses. I think that's the
yeah,
coolest thing
yeah,
I've
the
ever seen.
Apple.
I'm like, dude, give me a pair of polarized glasses, and I'll just look at live scope. That's
Yep.
incredible. Like,
One of the one
you
of
know,
the one of the Guggen guys, I don't know if it was Flair or I think it was John B. Went out on a boat and had the Apple Vision glass, which you can see through those,
yeah,
and it's like a heads up display. And
yeah,
he was seeing his live scope, in real time as he's standing on the front of the boat casting and not having to look down. And
that's incredible. I mean,
yeah,
I get,
yeah,
I
Seth, you can definitely spend, like I said, that one guy had $50,000 in electronics. Your boat, Seth, nowhere near $50,000, right? The bass boat I've had, nowhere near $50,000. And I see people, we're running into guys now that have more in the electronics than they paid for the kayak itself. Right. It's, um, Hobie, I think Hobie will always be the more expensive of the kayak line, right? So you go get the fanciest Hobie, I think you're looking 6,500. Um, but when you put two, let's say you put a forward facing and a perspective mode on there, right? That's almost as much as what you just paid for the kayak. So you've already doubled it, and then you get your motor, whatever kind of motor you want on there, Torpedo or NKS or
well, not to mention the
XI3.
battery. The battery. The
Yeah,
battery
yeah,
just to run the two graphs. I mean, you got two live scopes, and I mean, you're gonna have some sort of down scan. I mean, battery's gonna be gigantic.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm running, that's one thing I do like about the X is it has the built-in battery box behind the seat.
Yeah.
and it's down. The battery box is down in the hull, so center of gravity. That's one of the things about the stability, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I do run one of the mini. I have a 100 amp hour battery, but it's a mini, so
Hmm.
my battery only weighs 19 pounds at 100 amp hours. Um,
I've got two
so
batteries. I've got 100 amp hour on the motor because that's the one thing I never want to run out of, right?
right.
And then I got a 50 amp hour, and they're both lithiums, of course. I got a 50
And
amp
you've
hour,
got what motor on yours?
the NK 180.
Okay, yeah, the rear mounted. Is it a 24 volt or is it
Yeah,
a?
yeah.
Yeah,
And if I had to do it all over, I would never buy a 24 volt. Man, a 24 volt, 100 amp hour lithium is
right.
as expensive as the motor. It's ridiculous, you know. And it's like to even find that. I mean, it's like you can go down to an auto parts store and find a 12 volt, 100 amp
Yeah.
hour.
If my lithium battery goes bad, I
Yeah,
can just go get a 27
yeah. But a
fuel cell
24 volt, I
battery and
mean,
put
it's
it in
like,
there if I had
and
to.
they just came out with the NK. What is it? The 300, and it's a 36 volt. And I'm
36
like,
volt. Yeah.
dude, like the market for just getting the batteries is so specific. I mean, it's
Yeah.
basically like you buy it from them and that's it, you know?
Well, they now have the electric outboards, right? So the NKs are, you can rate the NKs, I think, in horsepower, right? You can find a
Yeah,
horsepower equivalent.
it's like
But
5 horsepower.
now, I'm looking, I looked at, there's like a 25 horse electric motor that looks like an outboard. And so now you've got these John boat tournaments, right? These electric only
Yeah,
John boat tournaments where
yeah,
they've always said, they've been trolling motor, but they haven't said trolling motor. They've said
sure.
electric. So now one of these guys can put one of those big 25 horse, unless they've got to tweak their rules, right? You can't,
Sure.
but you had guys that were, I know guys that had 5 and 6 trolling motors on their John boat to fish the John boat tournaments.
Hey,
They would have, I know one guy I know for sure had 4 basically hand control trolling motors on the back of his John boat and had them all locked at going straight. And then he had a foot control trolling motor on the front that he steered with.
you know,
And
sometimes it's like, dude, like how fast do you need to get to the fishing spot? You know, like how
well,
many motors? When
I
is it,
know,
when does it
but
stop?
that's what we
Let's
do.
put
That's
6 of
what we
them across
do.
the back,
You
like
know, we buy a car and we want to put a computer chip. We buy a car and we put all this stuff in it to go faster, and we do it with our boats. And Daniel here says he's got the Power Queen Mini 100 amp, and I'm sure Daniel. I'm thinking my brand is Redodo. Um,
mhm,
you know, I'm thinking they're all pretty much the same thing. Yours probably weighs right in at that 19 pound
just has a
that
different
mark,
label
just
on it.
like mine does if it's a mini. And they just change a little something from one brand to the other. Um, so anyway, that's we got a lot more into kayaks than I was planning, but that's good, right? Okay, so Daniel says his is 21 pounds. Mine's 19.
19, 21. I mean, that's something like
And now I have to I need another battery to go up front to power. I've got a 93 SV Garmin, just side
that.
scan and
Yeah.
down
Mhm.
scan, right?
Yep.
I've been running that for years just on a 7 or 8 amp 12-volt deer feeder battery,
Right. Yeah.
right? And I can run 9 hours, right, of constant graph before it kind of starts acting flaky. But like you said, now I'm wanting to put call them interior lights or cabin lights or whatever to light
Yeah.
up around
Oh,
my feet when it's dark in the morning. I want to get the
yeah.
red
Oh,
and green lights on the front. So now I'm looking at, okay, now I've got to go. Now I've got to get a 20 amp or 30 amp hour to go in the front. Luckily, the Native has that battery box up front as well.
that's something that I wish they had done with their older models. It wasn't until like the 13s and then the X's and all that stuff that they actually put those compartments. Like my 12 volt 50 amp hour, my front lithium that just runs my graphs and and the LEDs, it just
Yeah,
sits inside the hatch. Like there's nothing
yeah.
special. There's no like
Yeah,
compartment or anything. I wish they had done that. I mean, I guess that's why they released new models and all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
But
I guess
um,
that started with the Slayer
yeah,
Max,
yeah,
right? My Slayer Max, when you open the hatch, it had the battery compartment. It has the scupper right there that's dedicated for your transducer.
yep,
And then in front of that, you had your storage. Here's the funny thing: going from a Slayer Max 12.5 to a Titan X 12.5. right? Much wider boat, 3 inches longer. I don't have as much storage space on the Titan X as I had in the Slayer X for other things. So, like the little storage bucket that I had in the front of the
Hmm.
Slayer Max, I kept my rain suit. I kept a spare prop for the pedal drive. I kept the Allen key, right, to do the pedal drive. I would store my graph in there, the remote for my motor. When I came off the water, that's why I stuck all that stuff in there. It's a tight squeeze. Like the bucket is much smaller, but what you lose in that bucket, you gain because you have the electrical sacrificial plates. There's one up on the front before the bow. It's made pretty much for to have a front mount motor, so
See,
so you
I
gain a
had
few things, right?
I
But
had to knock holes in my boat for all that stuff. Like,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
10.5, it didn't have any of those plates or anything.
Right,
So, I
right.
mean, I literally, and let me tell you, the 10.5 didn't have a specific scupper mount for your down scan and side scan, right? So, there is like a recess on the bottom where you can put the transducer, and then you're
Right.
supposed to run it up through the pedal drive, right? So, it's like, man, I knocked a hole right in the bottom of it, man. I took a drill right through the bottom of the hole, ran the wire up, and then, man, there's probably more waterproofing on that. It's like a unsinkable battleship at this point. I mean, I put silicone, I put like,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have the waterproof kayak sheets or whatever,
yeah,
and then I put like Flex Seal and more layers of silicone and then on both sides too. It's like a sandwich of waterproof, you know. But yeah, I had to drill holes in my boat for all that. My LEDs knocked a hole right in the side of the boat. My back LEDs, they're behind the wheels, like the Boondocks wheels or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and I knocked a hole right in the side. And then I took a bunch of hangers and I connected them together, and I reached in through the hatch and
Oh,
like
to
went
fish
all the
fish
way,
your wire in there.
to
Yeah,
get the
yeah, yeah,
wires up to the front, man. It's
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
Dave, I'll agree with you. Wiring mine up was very easy. I did knock one hole in the boat itself. If you remove the lid for the rear battery hatch, um, I used 6 gauge welding wire to
mhm,
run from the rear up to my XI3, and I just knocked a hole in the plastic in that hatch up at the back and
mhm.
used a Yak Attack through hole connector to bring my power wires into that rear area. I know a lot of people just uh, uh, hit the wrong one. I know a lot of people just kind of let the wires come up around that battery box, the tray. Um, but I wanted as much of the lip of that tray touching the boat as possible because I don't want the tray that tray feels like a weak point. Like if you had a heavy battery, I almost feel like that tray might
Yeah,
slip off the lips, and fall in the bottom of the boat. So,
yeah. I just got a
well,
little waterproof bag, and that's what I put like horn, trauma kit, water,
yeah,
waterproof ponchos, and it's
yeah,
right in the hull. Like I don't even have a
yeah,
bucket in mine.
yeah. Just throw it in there. It's the other thing I did to do. I like uh, originally, one of the ideas was to float a river and camp, right? So you got to carry your hammock and if you've got a small tent, maybe a small tent, but a hammock, some stuff. Carry
Mhm.
some stuff with you. And I used to duck hunt out of that Wilderness Commander. I duck hunted out of a Perception Pescador Pro. Um, because it was green. It was green. So, but I could carry everything I needed to carry in it. I eventually ended up with a canoe, and then never even duck hunted out of the canoe. I kept the canoe probably a year and a half, and then finally just sold it. Right, like, hey, if I can get what I bought it for, because if somebody can use it, it's just sitting here taking
Yeah.
up space for me. So, well, instead of talking about kayaks all night, let's talk about baits.
All
Let's
right.
talk about bait making
All right.
and custom baits. How did you come about making baits, and what were the first baits that you started with?
So weirdly enough, I started with glide baits. Um, I somehow I found glide baits. I got really into them, big glide baits, like 12-inch glide baits, ones that cost a lot of money. And I got really because I used to do like woodworking, and I've always like built things. So it was really interesting to me to then like come up with the concept of an actual glide bait. Like I could just get basswood or cedar or whatever, and I could carve it out. I got like a whole wood shop in my actual shop, saws and all sorts of stuff. So I could carve it out, and then it's like I could put it together, and I was like, okay, well, this is great, but I just have like a solid wood block, right? I used to actually do competition shooting as well, so I was casting my own lead bullets, and I was like, well, I can put lead in the bottom of this thing and like make it float upright and make it sink at a certain rate. So I kind of went that way, and then I was like, well, I just have a blank piece of wood that looks like a fish, and I was like, it would probably be good to be able to like paint this thing, right? So then I got into airbrushing, and I went and bought a compressor and all that sort of stuff. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, if I'm airbrushing a big glide bait, I can certainly airbrush little tiny crankbaits and jerk baits too. So I started doing that. And then I was just like, man, for the longest time, my favorite thing in the world to throw was a jig, like a football jig. And I just said, well, man, I'm doing all this other stuff. I could probably start making some jigs. So I figured that out. Oh, there we go. Daniel, that's some good promo right there. um, yeah, so I mean, I started making jigs and I started experimenting with colors and being like, man, like these really work, these do and don't, and then somewhere along the line, it's just like anything, like any sort of like addiction, people compare it to like getting a tattoo or upgrading your kayak is what I'll compare it to. It's like,
100%, 100%.
You just go further and further and further into it, and it's like you see all these different aspects. And then I got into soft plastic making, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I love making soft plastic. And don't get me wrong, I love making all the other stuff too because it's fun for me. But soft plastics, it's like, man, I'm not limited by anything other than my imagination. Like what color combination can I come up with? And it's like, of course, there's all sorts of stuff that we know works. There's your baby bass and your watermelons and your blacks and pinks and all that stuff that everyone knows works. But it's fun for me to come up with all that sort of stuff. So just kind of dive deeper and deeper and deeper, and I buy new molds, pretty much a couple times a month, and it's fun for me to experiment with all the different soft plastics and everything.
Yeah, it's kind of maybe kind of cathartic too, right?
Yeah,
almost like a therapy because you can. But the big question is, the big question is, because I've got you and I talked, and I told you like I kind of I've told people like my first confidence bait ever was a 3/4 ounce spinner bait, right? And the man's classic, the Hank Parker classic, was the one that I basically had all my confidence in to begin with. Funny story, Hank Parker did not win the Bassmaster Classic using a man's spinnerbait. He won it using hog collar, right? His spinnerbaits were made by hog collar. He helped engineering with the thin wire and all that for the vibration. But after he won the Bassmaster Classic, Mans came along and wanted to sponsor him. So he moved that design over to Mans, and then when he left Mans, they can no longer call it the Hank Parker Classic, so they have to call it the Mans Classic. But that came with the little split tail trailer, right? Very, very, the body of it was really small, and then it split to the two little leg trailers.
Yep.
You can get those from Zoom now that are similar, but you're very, very limited in the color, right? You can get white, you can get chartreuse, you can get, but there's 4 or 5 colors you can get. There's no dark colars. Like, I'd like to have like a green pumpkin one or a black one. And so you and I talked, and I was like, man, I've always thought I'd like to find a mold for that and just recycle some of my used plastics so that I could make my own split tail trailers. I did not know at that time how much some of the molds cost, which is crazy what some of these molds cost.
Yeah. Some of them you have to get CNC cut. Like I'm working with a guy when I first started everything, I think I told you, like I ordered like 20 molds from him or something all at once, and he's backed up, beyond belief. So he just as he makes them, he ends up sending them to me, and I get a new mold here and there. But yeah, it's an expense.
Yeah. Well, so some of the guys that I'm around are they were looking, and so I guess you put the plastic in a glass measuring cup. Most people do, and then that goes in a microwave.
Correct.
And I guess it's kind of like motorcycles. It's not if you're going to crash, it's when. So it seems like with soft bait making, it's not if that's going to explode in the microwave, but when.
It's
So
funny.
have you had that experience yet where something blew up in the
Yeah,
microwave?
absolutely. It's funny that you say that because I literally had a Pyrex 2 cup measuring cup blow up in the microwave like last week. And I mean, I'm thankful that because the thing is, it's like you're going to heat it up to 350 or 400 degrees, before you're shooting the actual injection mold. Um, and then let's say you just have like one mold, you're going to wait about 10 minutes and pull those baits out, right? And in that 10 minutes, the stuff that's left in the cup is going to start to solidify, right? So you're going to have to reheat that, right? So it's like a constant expansion and contraction of the glass, and it really is a ticking time bomb. But I had one blow up the other week. I'm just glad that it was safely in the microwave, and I had just hit start, and I guess it just had enough, and I just heard the just very distinguishable sound of glass, blowing up in a
It's the
microwave.
Pyrex that
Yeah,
explodes, right? It's the
yeah,
measuring cup that
yep,
explodes. I just
yep.
wonder if there's something else that can be used because it seems like I've seen more and more pictures of that as I've looked around the internet. It goes, hey, mine happened today, and a guy posted a picture of his inside of his microwave covered in goop.
Yeah, I was just
So
I was just lucky that it had just started the heating cycle. I had been pouring that, like reheating and pouring, all day long. But that
I
specific
got you.
one, had just started the reheat cycle. So when it blew up, there was glass everywhere, but there was not like, drippy, plastisol all over the place as well. So I
Right,
was lucky
right.
to be able to just like, sweep out the inside of the microwave and it's funny about that. I ordered. There's a huge company for plastisol called Dead On Plastics, and I'm not sponsored or affiliated with them at all. They just make a very good product, and so I've been using their plastisol, and I noticed like I don't know maybe last week or something that they also sell measuring cups, and I said, well, man, I'm down a measuring cup. Let me just they're like $8. All right, let me add one to my order. And it got delivered today, and I walked out. I get like the UPS notification. Hey, your package has been delivered. And they graced me with a picture of my front door and the package, right? And then I walk outside and I pick the box up, and it's completely smashed glass on the
I
inside.
was going to say, I knew that's where you're going. You can hear the
Yeah,
glass in
yeah.
there.
And I just went, oh my god! And I just took a video of me opening it, and then the glass completely shattered. And I actually contacted them, and they were graceful enough to actually just send me another one for free because he was
Yeah,
like, man,
yeah.
I mean, I sent pictures and everything. I was like, I didn't break this, and then put it back in the bag or anything. I mean, it's
Right, and it's nice when a company
yeah,
does that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's UPS or whoever. It's their fault, right? It's not the
yeah,
person
yeah,
that sold it to you's fault, but
yeah.
um, you know that makes you stick with a company, right?
Well, customer service,
A
is
hundred percent, a hundred
hundred
percent.
percent.
Um,
Um,
I'm hearing horror stories about some of these fishing companies and their customer service. Maybe
yeah,
some of them, might be kayak manufacturers. Um,
native.
I had a whole, I had a whole, I had a whole warranty claim on a native. Basically, we just had to prove where the leak was. That was the burden of proof was where is it leaking, right? And I had to get one of the kayak shops help me find the leak. Get Outdoors in Greensboro. So one thing I've always really, really, and I'll just go ahead and plug Get Outdoors right now. I've always been really, really reluctant to mention Get Outdoors um, in anything we do with CCKF. One, we had a previous sponsorship with a kayak dealer. It was in poor taste to talk about a different kayak dealer when our title sponsor was a kayak dealer, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Two, Get Outdoors has a really, really good relationship with Carolina kayak anglers.
Hmm.
In talking to the TDs at Carolina Kayak Anglers, even in talking to Will at Good Outdoors, Will has said, I'll sponsor you guys. I'll do something. I'm very, very self-conscious about being perceived as trying to snake sponsors away from another trail.
Hmm.
So I've left Get Outdoors to CKA, and just never taken up that. But the one thing, I told Will during this last transaction of mine, I told him, I said, Will, we no longer are associated with any kayak dealer. So rest assured that you'll start getting some plugs from us, not even in a response from sponsorship, but for the way you take care of anglers
Hmm.
and the way that I don't feel like Will is just in it to make money,
Hmm.
right? I know he's got to make money, so he's selling bikes and he's selling kayaks. And
Sure.
at the end of the day, he's feeding his family that way. But he has taken care of me. Um, when I bought a native from a different dealer and it
Hmm.
then had a warranty issue, the original dealer no longer sold native. I went to Will. I had no issues whatsoever. They worked. They kept my boat. They are the ones that found where the leak was. It was a sneaky leak. Um,
Hmm.
I put it up on my trailer. I put it up on sawhorses. Filled it up with water. Never could get water to come out of it. And it was just a weird leak that they found, and they got my hull replaced. Um, they'll do that for anybody. It's not me. It's not because run a trail. It's because I'm an angler and I had a need, and they're out. So if we're going to talk about customer service. If you guys need anything, I highly recommend go to Get Outdoors. There's nothing wrong with Great Outdoors Provision Company. There's nothing wrong with lots of dealers, Waterways, all these other dealers. But what I can attest to is how I've been taken care of in Greensboro and how they've made a committed customer out of me. I didn't mean for this plug to run that long, but you were mentioning customer service, and I just felt like, I told Will, we're going to plug you, and that's something I needed to follow through on. So
It's incredible what kind of difference good customer service can make. I mean,
I don't, and no matter what the company, no
yeah,
matter what the company.
yeah. I mean, it could be like your cell phone. I mean, you just walk away from it and you're like, man, that guy, he went all the way out of his way to try and. Did I lose you? Oh, wow, that was weird. My screen just like
What happened?
flickered off. I don't know. The whole screen just flickered off there for a second.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
yeah, it's just incredible that it's like you experience good customer service, and then you come home and you're like, man, I got to tell my wife. Like this person
Or I got
went
to
out
tell
of
my
their
other
way.
kayak
Yeah,
buddy, or I got to
yeah.
tell whoever, right?
This person went out of their way to to help me and everything, and that's one of the things that I kind of took with me, in making this and everything. But and I think I've talked to you before about like I'm in customer service for my day job. I'm a business consultant for a software company, so it's like like I see poor customer service every single day, and I try not to like feed into that at all. So the last thing that I'd ever want to do is offer someone poor customer service in anything, but especially not like
Yeah,
a business,
yeah.
so
Well, that's a nice segue into maybe a lot of guys don't know this, right? But you're making your own baits, and you say that creativity, right? You're not limited by anything other than your own creativity and creating these soft baits. And I'm not going to give up the angler, and I'm not going to give up the color. But I do know that one of our anglers contacted you looking for something very specific. They were heading to a tournament out of town, and they said, "Hey, I want something in this color in your Cinco and your uh, uh, finesse
hmm
bait, right?"
hmm
And you created it for them, like
hmm
you custom did that color. So guys, if there's know that is an offer from
hmm
4-7, right? If you're looking for something specific and you can't find it, um, you know, other than from a custom bait maker, I don't know that a bruised banana Cinco exists
oh
out
yeah, and
there. It
I
doesn't exist from Yamamoto, or however we say it.
I sent you a
Um,
few of those.
Yeah. So I've
I
got
hope.
I've got bruised, but you didn't make them for me because you
Right.
had them on your site, right? And then
Yeah.
you posted, "Hey,
Yeah.
trying some bruised banana,"
Yeah,
and
and let me just actually mention for a second, if I could name drop here. There's a couple of people that we work with. I do know the person that you're talking about that hit me up. Creating custom colors is something that's super fun for me. I mean, if there's you can give me a picture or something. I actually had someone from a different club hit me up and say, hey, like there's this bait that I really want to try out. I haven't seen it sold anywhere. Okay, no problem. So he sent me pictures. I was able to create it. I actually, worked with him directly. I said, hey, like I sent him pictures of what I was coming up with, and I said, hey, does this work? Is it, too much fleck? Is it the right color and all that? So we're really able to kind of customize that. But along with that, I mean, I actually work with a couple YouTube people, and I'll name drop here for a second. So Josh with Abide Fishing, we work with him, and then Travis also with Travis does kayak fishing. We work with him. Both those guys have their own like custom lines of colors with me. and I was more than glad to create for them, you know. So, and they came to me and said, that's just how it started. Hey, you know, this is a bait that I fish a lot, you know, and I can't necessarily get it. So, yeah, I was more than happy to kind of, oh yeah, there you go. You're pulling it right up, man. Put me on
Yeah.
blast. Yep, this is the website. Yep, I got a whole like online lure shop. I apologize in advance for some of the photography. It's I'm doing this entire website and my day job and the business and all that sort of stuff. So it's oftentimes many of the baits that I create are just a little bit lagging behind because then I got to go and post them to the website and all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, there's definitely all sorts of stuff, and I'm more than happy to create any sort of custom anything.
So you guys can see. Hopefully, everybody's been and checked out the website, and if you haven't, go do it. But you can see there's spinner baits, there's jigs. Daniel, Kaysen or Kayson, I'll figure out how to pronounce that one of these days. You know, he's already made mention of the jigs a couple times. But if you go over here to, excuse me, soft baits. I should look at this screen because that's where I'm actually doing this.
Soft baits are.
I did see that right before was it? No, maybe it wasn't soft baits where I saw that. Maybe it was just on the home page and then the second page of the.
Oh, there is on the homepage. There is like a featured bait section that has a bunch of different baits and everything on it at the very bottom. But
so I noticed on here you've got the Travis Does Kayak Fishing Signature Soft Plastics.
Yep.
And here's Abide. Here's Abide's fishing special.
Yeah,
so
and he wanted a spinner bait with like a 2.5-inch blade. That blade up top is like 2.5 inches long.
Is that what you call the monstrosity? Is that
that's it. Yep, ½ ounce. It's but that blade is gigantic, you know. And he was just like, yeah, I want something that's gonna make them either scared or, you know, fight or flight. And I was like, man, let's do it, you know. And then he also had requested, you know, like a brown and orange swirl. Did it not?
Well, one of them came up and one of them didn't. So
okay, I'll take a look at that at some point and figure out why it's not displaying. And then same thing with Travis. He said, you know, hey, I like this watermelon with orange fleck. I was more than happy to create it for him and said, hey, you know, let's make this like your signature thing, you know. And he was on board. I was on board, so I created it for him, sent him a whole bunch, and I think he's fishing like a QCB or Queen City or something. He might be fishing something, I don't know, this weekend, next weekend. But
I think Travis fishes upstate, maybe upstate and some of the Queen City. I've not met him. Just from what I know of him, I think he's in those two.
But I mean, you know, we do try, you know, to work with people, and I know there's definitely some people that I've gotten in touch with, and I said, hey, I want to work with you, and just bear with me. I know I haven't gotten anything out to you, but bear with me. Like I said, not only am I doing a day job, I'm also doing this side job, and I manage the website, you know. So sometimes it's I get a little bit behind, and then it's like, you know, of course, like actual orders. Will sort of take preference over, you know, like someone that I'm working with, and I'm going to send them, you know. So yeah, just bear with me. Do I plan on bringing any baits to sell at tournaments? Yes, I do. Probably not at the one at Heiko, because I just sent out a whole batch of stuff, and it just takes me a little bit longer to get that kind of amount, because I like to do something like 10 bags of like all the normal colors. So like 10 bags of June bug Cincos, 10 bags of June bug finesse, you know, 10 bags of watermelon Cincos, 10 bags of watermelon finesse, right? So, yes, I will be doing that, just probably not at the Heiko tournament on the 23rd.
So, how many trails are you kind of sponsoring right now?
Well, you're the only title sponsor, and then
right.
I'm working with a whole bunch of them. Daniel Kaysen, Port City. I'm working with those guys. There's UK Foothills. I am providing baits for a bunch of different trails as well, which is not necessarily a sponsorship. It's more just like, you know, hey, here's prizes for like first through third and big bass of each event. You know, so that's the case with Foothills. That's the case with UKA. Port City, I just mentioned. There is a coastal fishing one out by Wilmington, and they don't do freshwater. It's all like trout and like, you know, redfin and things like that. So I gave them, I think it's called Coastal Kayak Fishers of North Carolina or something to that effect. And then I am sponsoring one event. I'm sponsoring Randleman with Eric, CKA. So, a couple, 5 or 6,
Yeah.
but like I said, it's all kind of different varying levels.
Well, and I asked that question just because I wanted to highlight. I want everybody that sees this to understand. I mean, you're invested in the kayak community,
Well,
right? Now, you are a kayaker,
yeah,
but but you're also, you take your time. It takes your time and your materials and all that to make these baits, and then you're donating them for prizes to
hmm
kayak anglers, and also to make sure that everyone knows that we have baits to give away at every single tournament to
hmm
first, second, third, and big bass.
yeah.
If you place in any of those at any of our tournaments, you're going to get a pack of 4-7 soft baits, soft
hmm
plastics.
Yeah,
So
the big thing is like I'm way more invested in kayak fishing and seeing that succeeds than at least that's the direction that I want the company to go.
yeah, yeah,
I want to be more involved in kayak fishing. I don't really give a hoot about bass fishing. It's like you get on a big floating fortress, you cast some stuff out. Yeah, I know it takes more than that. It's not just you can't just go out there and catch them. But all those guys they're set in stone. They don't they're not really looking for opportunity. And for a business like myself, they're probably not looking at any sort of sponsorship opportunities or anything like that for bigger bass tournaments. They have all that stuff. Coastal Carolina kayak fishing. That's
is
correct.
that their name? Because I think their
Correct.
abbreviation would probably be CCKF, which would be really confusing with Central Carolina kayak fishing. But I'm gonna tell you,
Well,
it's when I named this, it was like one, I live in Sanford, so everything around Sanford is Brick City or Central Carolina.
yep,
Even the community college is Central Carolina,
yep.
and it was, it's just hard to, and I don't have creativity when it comes up to picking a name for something. So I was like, all right, I'll just, and I even, we even have problems um, with getting called because of CKA. We get called CCKA sometimes. Sometimes they just call us CKA. Sometimes people try to send my money to CKA. Um,
You
you
should
know,
call it like the Mitch Lasseter fishing
yeah,
experience
yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
So if I could somehow have the acronym come to MILF,
Oh yeah, I,
something
I
MI, so big capital M, little I, and then L, Mitch Lassiter Fishing, and it would be MILF. So,
I think
uh,
that if you think about that, you'll come up with it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We might
And
be up
this
for.
is so I don't know who posted this. So many leagues now, plus all the national trails. Amen.
Yeah.
And now you've got another trail trying to come into North Carolina now, that green fishing, which is they're trying to be a national thing with state clubs. They do
Hmm.
have a small state chapter here, green fishing. It's more western of us. I think it's more over towards. I'm not 100% sure. I looked at it, but when I saw that this year, I'm like, man, we're just going to get so inundated, right? It's right now we've got it. It kind of works out. You've got Queen City, you've got Foothills, right? So Foothills is far west. If you come west to east, you've got Foothills, then
Oh,
you've got
Foothills
Queen
is also
City.
a little bit south too, right? Aren't they? They have some stuff in South Carolina too, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I know they do a lot of like Lake Hickory, Lake
Yeah, I know that.
James, that kind of
uh,
stuff,
They have
northwest of
a cha-
Charlotte more.
yeah, I think they
Um,
have a charity event in July out in
yeah,
Charlotte.
yeah. I
Yeah,
did
yeah.
see they have a charity event. But anyway, you got Foothills, you got Queen City, you've got Carolina or CKA, then you got CCKF, and then we've got Port City. So we've kind of got like the state in
Up
zones. That
there's also
might be all we can
UK
really support.
UKA also.
Yeah, the
Uphills.
upstate.
Yep, upstate.
Yeah,
Yep, upstate
I call
kayak
that
fishers.
sub Carolina, or
Yeah,
South Carolina, something
yeah,
like that. Uh,
yeah.
so and
I-
Queen City has
Multiple
a Virginia
divisions.
chapter, a South
Yeah,
Carolina chapter,
yeah, yeah.
and maybe two North Carolina. I think they've got
hmm
about
Yeah, I
four
think so.
different little races you can get in now.
Yeah,
Um,
they have a
yeah, we
lot.
can't support many more before it's like way too hard to schedule a tournament because, I try to be really, really cognizant of when everybody else's tournaments are. Um, there's not a lot of crossover between Queen City and CCKF. So if I have to step on somebody's, it a lot of times defaults to Queen City, but if I do, I try to do it when they're fishing in South Carolina or
Mhm.
Virginia as opposed to a North Carolina,
Yeah.
because we have had guys from Queen City fish with us. We've had
Mhm.
our guys fish with Queen City, and we want to leave that option open for
Mhm.
everybody, to go either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing about that is that you can mostly pick up, if you really want to fish. I mean, you could pick up one every single weekend.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. If
it's
you
just
look at the
amazing.
if you go to the CCKF group, Don Trail shared a file. It's up at the top. I've got it as a pinned
Yeah,
post where he
the
put the
macro list or
multiple
whatever.
schedule, and he even pulls in KBF and
Yeah.
Hobie,
hmm
and probably BASS. I would assume that's on there too. And
hmm
he's got all the trails. And if you look, um, maybe holiday weekends, you might have an open, maybe Memorial Day, maybe Labor Day, maybe July 4th. Um, I learned not to schedule on a holiday weekend at all. Like we had a tournament on a Saturday of Mother's Day,
Mm.
right? And I didn't realize how many people traveled for Mother's Day. Um, but I never had to travel. My mom was always just in the next town,
Yeah.
So Mother's Day on Sunday, that wasn't an issue for me at all. So,
Mine's down in
so
Alabama, living retired on a farm, so
uh,
I'd have to seriously travel to go down and see
yeah,
her.
yeah. I don't know that you can retire on a farm though. Like you may not work a public job, but I think there's
Well,
always something to do on a farm.
yeah, it's not like you're not working at all.
Right.
There's,
When my dad retired, he said he never knew how he had time to work.
yeah.
And
Well, I mean, I think when you're retired, it's about doing what you want to do instead of,
as
like
opposed to,
just
yeah,
pulling the paycheck, so that you can,
100%. Um, so one thing I thought about was, are there currently any baits that you want to make or that you have a vision to make, but you don't currently make them? Right. So like, do you have like a wish list of, yeah, I need to get this mold, or I want to learn how to, like, I don't know. I don't think a chatterbait is that much harder than making a jig, right? It's
oh,
a
you just
different head and you've got to put a
attach a
blade in the
blade to
front of it. Yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. But is there
um,
is there something that that you've targeted, like, hey, I don't make this now, but it's something I want to get into?
Yeah, so a couple of things, and none of them are related to bass fishing, I don't think. So, shrimp
Gotcha.
mold. I know that they
Yeah,
make some
yeah.
shrimp molds, and I don't know why I want to make that. I just think it'd be a cool thing to throw. Then they make some very interesting crab molds. It's like an actual crab, but if it's a soft plastic, all the legs, kind of flail and everything. And then they make an octopus mold too. And I don't know why I want to make any of those. None of them relate. I mean, I'm sure a hungry bass would eat anything, as long as it's like,
Right, right. Well,
what's the
I did see, Guggen's no, it wasn't even Guggen Squad. I just saw a random YouTube guy, throw a Twizzler like a stick bait, right? He wacky rigged a Twizzler and caught bass on it. So,
have you seen that guy Marlon Bates on YouTube? He's a wood maker. He makes all these
yeah,
wood baits. He does things like, will a bass bite a cigarette? And he'll make like a wood cigarette, put a little lip on it, paint it up, and it looks like a cigarette. Or would a bass bite at a stick? And he'll like put some treble hooks on a stick and throw it.
and see it.
And
Yeah, yeah,
he catches bass on it. So I think that they'll bite anything.
yeah. Seth, I don't know if you may know Seth. If you don't know, and for anybody that watches that doesn't know, Seth is a North Carolina fisheries biologist.
Okay.
We've done several lives with him talking about the health of our lakes, and our
Sure.
fish. And so he's saying, get eels, soft plastic eels.
Yeah.
And I do
Yeah.
know that that's a viable bass bait for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
They make
they
super
make
like 40.
snakes. They make,
Yeah, they make
hey,
everything.
I've got a topwater spider. Right?
So
I've
that
got
does really
I
well.
think it's Lunker Hunt.
Yep,
Lunker,
Lunker Hunt. Yeah, the little black one.
yeah,
A little like looks
yeah.
look like
Mine's black and yellow. Looks like
yep.
I think it kind of looks like the wolf spiders.
Yeah, and I bet
Um,
that does really well. Like like over trees overhanging or something like that. You just plop it out there. A bass would eat that up all day long.
Might or might not work well at Lake Raleigh when they have all those pads at the back.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Yeah, they make
Um,
alligator baits and squirrels and sharks and
oh
all
yeah,
sorts
you
of
see,
stuff.
I see mice, I see rats.
Yeah.
The
Oh
people are
yeah.
throwing these things,
They make
bass,
big ones too. I mean,
ducks,
like 10-inch.
duck,
Yeah, ducks.
the little rubber ducks, right? The little
Yeah.
yellow. It looks like a little, like you're going to put it in the bathtub with your kid with
Man,
hooks on it.
I remember last year I was out on some lake. I don't remember where it was, but I mean there was a fleet of little baby ducks, and they were sailing along, and a bass just chomped one. I mean,
Yeah,
just bloop,
yeah.
blew up on it, and it was done and gone. And I was like, oh my god, I just saw a bass eat a duck. It's like, what won't they eat?
I know. When I was setting this up with you and a couple of the guys were, who is 4-7 Lures? By the way, we haven't even said your name. That's the funny thing is
Philip,
we've been on here a little over an hour. We've never even said your name. Uh,
Philip, yep,
yeah, yeah, Philip. So everybody, when you see him at the tournament, this is Philip. He'll
yep,
be at Heiko. He'll be at a lot of tournaments.
yep.
Um, but we talked about you being a mystery, and I was joking with you, and I was like, man, I wish I could pixelate you
Yeah.
and do a voice changer,
Yeah, I thought that
and
was
just
a
kind of
great
play
idea.
into that mystery a little bit
You know,
more, and have you blurred
yeah.
out and have a voice
Yeah,
changer.
I was ready to come on here and say, in my robot voice, I was going to destroy all humanity, and that would leave all the bass for me. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, we even did joke, to do that and say, your goal is to take over the fishing industry,
yeah.
right? So, but it does lead me to a question, and I need to write this one down because I do want to start asking this. What do you think the next? Uh, and we can divide it into two things, right? Like right now, it's forward-facing sonar, and a lot of the baits that are being developed are even being developed as forward-facing sonar baits.
hmm
But in your thought, what do you think the next big bait is going to be? And then also maybe what's the next big technological advancement?
I think the next big technological advancement is going to be like a 360, but live sonar. So you'll be able to see because 360 is not actually live. It's just like your down scan, right? It's
Yeah, yeah. It just
as
it
it
just goes around in a continual
yeah,
circle.
as it
Yeah, yeah,
rotates, it puts that picture together. But I think that they're going to come out with something that is, omnidirectional live sonar. So that way you would be able to see everything moving around your boat, in live real time.
yeah.
Next bait, I don't know. There's
And this is
there's
this would be just a stab in the dark for anybody, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I love top water, so I would love to say that there's going to be some kind of like top water that's just really going to kill them. But that's like the case everywhere. Every top water kills them. Um, and I know that they're doing a lot of stuff with like they have this company Bait Pop. It's like a gel, and I guess it has flecks of metal or something in it, but basically it reflects the sonar rays better. So you
so
would
you
put
can
it
put it
on
on you put it
yeah,
on your
you would
bait.
put it on
Uh-huh.
your bait, and then it's like, oh, you can see it pop on the forward facing sonar because it's actually reflecting off of like the little metal flecks. So I think it would be something along those lines. I mean, it's really hard to say like what the next bait could be that people are going to be popping with, because it changes so often. And I mean, it's like, one year it's like, man, Ben Milliken just went and threw a 10-inch glide bait, and like won one of the Elite Series or something like that. That's a huge bait. I mean, for a
Yeah,
glide
yeah,
bait, I mean, that's like huge.
yeah,
So I can't say if it's going to go bigger or smaller. I mean, it's like, maybe a 14-inch eel or something is going to be the next bait, but it's going to be something that's the whole industry is really moving toward like forward facing sonar specific baits,
yeah, yeah,
and things that are a little bit wider so that the beam has hit it and it shows up a little bit more. So it's going to be something like that. I don't know, but for technology, 100% it's going to be some kind of live 360. And I'll tell you what, when
So
that live 360 comes out, I'm going to put it on my boat. It'll be my fourth monitor. I'm going to have the
will you
mobile.
even need the others? I don't even know if you'll need the others if they develop it correctly.
I don't know because with I have to imagine, with perspective mode, it's like you're seeing 270 degrees in a flat plane, right? Whereas with forward mode, down mode, you're seeing 270 degrees down into the water. So I mean, I think if
Gotcha,
it were some
gotcha.
kind of 360, it's going to be that flat plane that you're looking at, which means you won't be able to see depth. You won't be able to see things that are 30 feet under your kayak, but you'll be able to see everything in the water column from the surface
At
to
that point out,
right,
yeah, yeah.
right, yeah.
So
So
do you think, just BASS, do you think they're going to limit, not outlaw, but do you think they're going to place limits on We talked about the
So,
$50,000 electronic boat, right? That's got,
well,
I want to say he had perspective, he had forward facing on front, so
yeah.
that's two. He had one
Well,
facing each side, and he had two facing the back. So he
yeah.
had basically had six.
Yeah. He probably had
Um,
like forward and perspective on the front and back, and
yeah,
then side.
yeah.
So he could see.
I mean,
So the thing about that, man, I don't think that they are going to limit it, because think about the companies that do this, right? It's Garmin, it's freaking Humminbird, it is, Lowrance, right? All those guys. I mean, where does everyone think the money? It's not just from the buy-in, that these boaters pay to fish these tournaments. I mean, these guys are all gigantic sponsors. I mean, Garmin's been Scott Martin's biggest sponsor for like 35 years, like, so, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, like, well, okay, if we limit that, they're going to be taking money out of their own pockets, which is against like every business principle and everything in the industry. And on
right,
top of that, I don't think that there should be limits. I mean, I think that 35 years ago when they came out with the plastic worm, people were in an uproar. They tried to ban that. They said, "Oh, it's too lifelike. They'll never be able to resist it." Right? And it's like, now you go buy a pack of Cincos. That's what it is.
yep,
And at the end of the day, I mean, it's just a tool. It's I can speak from experience. I've fished prior years of your tournaments, and I had live scope. I've had it for a couple of years now, and it never helped me catch anything. I mean, it's cool that you can see the jig that you're bouncing off of the bass's face that's suspended, you know. But oh, pink. I make a pink worm. You can get those for me. But um, so it's kind of like, are you going to make a move to take all this money and sponsorships and things like that? You can't tell a company like Gar. What are you going to say? No, Garmin, we don't want your money for this tournament. Yeah,
right,
that'll go
right,
over like a sack of rocks. They're going to say, okay, well, yeah. Well, how about we have no tournaments at all in your entire state, and then we can see how much everyone starts, flooding back. So I think at the end of the day, it's just too big. There's too much riding on it, and I mean, those fishers that do have that $50,000 of electronics and stuff. I mean, that's gigantic promotion, right? I mean, this guy, who knew who he was, right? And now Chris Zaldain goes out there. He's like, this guy has an insane live scope setup, right?
right,
Now
right, right.
everyone's
And
like,
now all of a sudden people know his
and,
name.
yeah, and I promise you, what is he running on that live scope? Garmin, right? So now
Yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
like, oh man, Garmin, yeah. So I mean, it's insane promotion, it's insane money, and I just don't. I think that at this point, there's just no way that you can take all of that out of fishing and say like, oh yeah. Now, will there be uh, some states that, like, put limitations or something like that on? Quite possibly. Wisconsin's got it up on their ballot right now to, I guess their fishery, their wildlife commission or whatever it is. Like, they put it to the people to decide what it is that they need to regulate. So that's something. So there may be, individual states or
Yeah.
cities or individual trails, kayak trails might, decide to just say like, hey, um, that'll be a problem for me because mine's all hardwired into the kayak. I can't take it off. Like, that
Well,
transducer switch.
I don't think they're going to outlaw it, right? Well,
Yeah, I don't
the
think they
individual
will.
states might, right? But like, let's say like BASS and MLF, I don't think they'll outlaw it.
No, I don't think they
I think
will.
if anything, they may limit. They may put limits on it. The golf industry limits how far a golf ball can travel. That kind of thing. Watching that video with Chris Zaldain, the thing that I saw, the BASS guys were out there taking measurements on all these boats. How
Mhm.
far up do your monitors come above your console? And so I think if they do limit it somehow, the two arguments are going to be one, um, and we don't know yet, does forward facing sonar have an adverse effect on fish? I know Texas is trying to study that, but
Mhm.
to figure that out is going to take years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's just like humans will produce a new plastic, and 20 years down the road, we've realized that we've caused a lot of cancer with whatever
mhm,
this chemical
mhm,
was in this plastic, right? It just takes a long time to see adverse effects. But I
sure.
think the other angle they might come at it with is safety. um, hey, you're obstructing your vision while you're driving a boat that has a 250 horsepower motor on it. So I think they're going to say it can only stick up this far. You can only have maybe this many monitors. I don't know, but I think that's the leg they'll try to stand on if they do try to regulate it in some way.
Yeah, I mean that's an easy solve though. It's just like, okay, so I'll just put it on my console and I'll
Right,
have
right, yeah, you
a
bring it
monitor off
down.
here.
Yeah,
Okay, I
you're
can
not
see
gonna have
over it, but I still have it.
as you mentioned last night, the Enterprise, right? It'll no longer
Yeah,
be the
sorry,
Enterprise
yeah.
on the console, the mass mode. You'll have to find another way. So. Well, man, we're at an hour and 20 minutes, so I'm gonna kind of wrap it up. But like I said, I originally I had hoped to be talking to the winner of the March 9th event tonight, um,
Hmm.
and uh, uh, CKA has a live stream tomorrow night, so I bumped ours up to Wednesday. But we had to cancel that, and as I was racking my brain this week of who to get, I was like, okay, well, I can knock out two birds with one stone. I can do we can talk about you and your fishing and your kayaks, and we can talk about 4-7 lures. And just
Unveil
wanted
the
to,
mystery, peel back the mysterious
yeah,
veil. You
and
know.
we peel back some of the onion layers, right? So, but also wanted to take an opportunity to thank you for you supporting us, not just CCKF, right, with the monetary contribution of being the title sponsor, but for supporting Foothills, for supporting Upstate, for supporting Daniel down at Port City, for giving out baits. Um, we just as anglers appreciate you and thank you for what you're doing for us, and just hope that I can drive more business your way and help build your brand through CCKF, and I'll take the opportunities to try to do so. And
Yeah, no, I just there's no other place I'd rather be, as far as like where the business is going. There's no other group of fishers I'd rather work with than kayak anglers. So um, yeah, hopefully it'll be a blooming relationship that we can have for many years to come. And
yeah,
all I have to say
we said,
is, 47lures.com, right? Spell it out, the number four, the
yeah,
number seven, lures.com. Yep.
yeah, and the one thing I've always said about kayak anglers, we share our information amongst ourselves. If some guy's throwing some custom color 4-7 soft plastic, and somebody says, "What are you throwing?" He'll plug you. He's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
4-7 made these for me. I told him what I wanted, you know, and he made them, and then maybe that guy comes to you."
I'm
So,
waiting for you to catch something on those bruised bananas, man. You'll be the first one.
well, you have to get out on the water and fish.
Yeah.
That's they don't do a whole lot sitting in the garage, but
Yeah.
the couple times I've been out have been really more testing out the new stuff and trying to get all the logistics worked out and make sure everything's where I want it and I'm comfortable. I was really getting worried the first time I was going to be on it was the Harris tournament. So
Oh,
that
one
was
other
it.
thing I want to say is that if anyone catches anything on any of my baits, send me a picture. I'll put it up on the website. I've got a gallery section. I think actually Daniel's up there. I know Travis and Josh are up there. One of the coastal guys. So there's a lot of people up there. If you
And
catch
I
something on
don't
one
know
of
what
my baits, Hmm?
Daniel says here. Get the app. I don't know. It's not a 4-7 Lures app. I don't know what app he's.
Maybe
Um,
Tourney X. Is that what we're talking
I
about? The
don't
new
know. He
one?
might be telling you to get an app. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're the software developer.
It's like get a life.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, again, thanks for coming on, man.
Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you. Glad to get your name out there. Look forward to seeing you at the tournaments and appreciate everything you're doing for us.
Excellent.
All right.
Appreciate the time.
Talk to you later, man.
Take care.
So, thanks, guys, for tuning in and for watching the replays. You don't have to. Hopefully, we provide some content here. We're trying to highlight some CCKF stuff, but hopefully, we provide some content that's valuable for anybody, no matter which trail you're fishing. And hey, you might even be in one of those glitter rockets, but we might say something here that interests you, especially when we're talking to Seth and some of these others about our lake health and cleanup, things like that. So, thanks for watching. Appreciate every one of you. Look forward to seeing you at HICO in just over a week. And everybody have a good night. We'll see you soon.